Hello and welcome to the Browns Blitz. Happy Easter to everybody. This is, of course, Easter Sunday, April 20th of 2025, and this is episode number 292. Kind of a special edition here. So it's going to be our last podcast before the draft. So we've got a great show going for you tonight, and I'm going to bring my brother Jeff in. Hey, Jeff.
Hey, Rod. Draft week's finally here.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. Pretty excited about it.
Yeah, so many different ways things could go, right? At this point,
yeah, that's right.
Every fan knows what they want to happen. The question is how badly are they going to be disappointed, right?
We'll find out. well, we got a great guest. Let's bring in Thor Nystrom. You can follow Thor at Thor KU. Thor is an NFL draft analyst, of course. He's been doing this for a long time and been coming on our show for a long time too. He's with Fantasy Football Weekly. That's at MB Fantasy Life, and he just put out the Thor 500. How many years you been doing that, Thor? The 500?
Oh man, this is like I should know this. I think my first year where I did a 500 board, it was either like 17 or 18, and a couple years before that, I was doing draft work too. It's been either a decade or 9 years since I've been doing draft work, but like I didn't start doing the 500 board till it was either 17 or 18.
Nice. I'm not sure. This is like the sixth year I think you've been here, sixth or seventh, maybe. I'm not sure. I'm not even sure how long we've been doing this show.
It's probably a similar timeline with pretty close with the 500 boards, honestly.
Yeah,
it's probably
it's pretty
timeline.
Cool. Yeah. We appreciate you coming on. We love having you here. I mean, Jeff and I have been looking over the Thor 500. I mean, of course we've been talking draft now for weeks and stuff, and been excited about having forever. You. Yeah, forever. But, it's like the last few times we've had you, it's like, yeah, we got Thor and he's this, news is draft inside and out. And it's like, who do you think we're going to take at 53? And now we finally got some assets. We can talk about a little bit more about the Browns and what we can look forward to. We got a little more to talk about this time, right?
For sure.
Almost everybody's in play, right?
It reminds me of, I've lived most of my life in Minnesota. I'm from Minnesota and I live in Minnesota now, but a fan of all the Minnesota sports. And after back in the day, the Timberwolves, they signed Joe Smith. They did this weird thing with this illegal contract where like basically for cap reasons, he agreed to to play for the minimum 3 straight years. And then they give him a max deal. Right. So it's like, oh, that's weird. Why did Joe Smith sign with the Timberwolves for the minimum? Then the next year he did again. Well, then the NBA found out, it was because they intended to give him a max deal, in year 4 in an effort to circumvent the salary cap, essentially. And so the NBA penalized the Timberwolves like 5 first-round picks or something. So I kind of know the struggle that the Browns fans have been in. And let's just say the first year we were back in the first round, the Timberwolves, it was like, oh, I get to watch the NBA draft again. So like and you guys, you go from sort of the outhouse to the penthouse in terms of that. Now you're sitting in the catbird seat with the second pick and then an enormous amount of draft equity after that. I think the Browns might lead the NFL in draft equity. You add everything together.
I think so.
Yes. Yeah,
I believe so.
It's going to be different. Lots of bullets this time.
Right.
Yeah. So the pick at 2 and whether they stay there or trade down or whatever has been just beat to hell over the past couple months. Let me just ask you this. Should Browns fans be worried? I mean, is there something the Browns could do here that would just be totally wrong? I mean, we know the options. So lay it on us.
Yeah, if they did anything outside of submit a card with Travis Hunter's name on it, that would be an enormous mistake. I think they're going to do the right thing, though. You listened to Andrew Berry last week at his press conference. He is a hell of an actor if they are not going to draft Travis Hunter at 2. He said every word except we're drafting Travis Hunter at 2. You didn't have to work hard to read between the lines there.
Yeah.
Usually they make it tougher on us, but Andrew made it easy for us there.
Yeah. When you compare a guy to Shohei Ohtani, I mean that shows some love, right?
Well, for
look,
also for Thor Nystrom's work, I've been comping. If you put my name into Twitter in the search handle with Travis Hunter and Shohei Ohtani, I started doing this like a year and a half ago. And then the whole unicorn thing. So it was funny, like watching the presser, because it was like Barry was like he was reading off my kind of script with Hunter, but this is just the way to see him. That's the kind of prospect that Travis Hunter, obviously he didn't steal it from me, but like the same sort of thought process of like, you guys know, I love comps. I'm the comp guy. And so, with Hunter, a guy I've been watching in college last 3 years, right? Like, and he did unprecedented thing coming out of high school and his recruiting, flips on Florida State to Jackson State, goes to the FCS. And then obviously it was tough with Coach Prime last, like during his career or whatnot. But like, you start thinking like, who am I going to comp him to? And I came pretty quickly to, there is no accurate comp I can give him 1-to-1. There's not one name I can put out where it's going to be accurate. It would just lead people away from what I actually think of them. So then I was thinking about doing, because I like to do the one name. I don't like to even put modifiers on them. I won't do that too often with the comps. I just like the clean ones. But then I thought, well, I was like for the receiver one, there was a couple ones that I liked for him. Odell Beckham was one. He's got some Justin Jefferson to him too, but I think it's closer to Beckham. And so I kind of settled on that. And then I was thinking through the corner one. And then I'm like, this is stupid. Like, I'll just comp him to Shohei Ohtani. That's what it is. Shohei Ohtani, when he went to MLB, you're about to see something you've never seen before. That's Travis Hunter.
Interesting.
So is that just curious, Thor? Is that Giants Odell Beckham or Browns Odell Beckham?
No, the Giants one. The Giants one. The LSU and then Giants one.
early Odell Beckham.
Yeah. Right. So, a lot of conversation around Travis Hunter and him playing both ways and so forth. How do you see that unfolding, assuming we do the right thing? And do you think that there's a right way and a wrong way to approach that?
Yeah. I mean, my assumption for the way that it'll be his rookie season is full-time CB1 and then like 40% on offense, 40% offensive snaps, something like that. So maybe like 90%, 85 to 90% defensive snaps, 40% offensive snaps, somewhere around there. And that distribution, more or less, I think is where the organization is going to arrive at, of like, we would feel comfortable about these snaps per game without the analytics and our medical team both suggesting to us that we are going to greatly elevate his injury risk. Because I think that's going to be the discussion. You're not leaving the snaps played decision to Travis Hunter, because then it would be 100% on both sides. You have to protect him from himself. Right. And you can't leave it to the coaching staff, because you also have to protect them from themselves. Both the offensive and the defensive staffs, they will be the best if Travis Hunter's on the field. So you have to go to the front office, leading the charge with this, but it's got to be your medical team and your analytics team. Analytics team's got to run regression analysis on, who has played the most snaps, per season, and what was there any injury stuff with them, and yada, yada, and try to sort of ballpark a number, and your medical staff can do as well. But yeah, that's what I think as a rookie. And then since it's an unprecedented thing, it's like a unicorn, kind of a deal. Like after the rookie year, you can just sort of play it by ear, right? Like if he does fine with that snap distribution, I think the second year you can add some, right? And you'll probably get better at mixing and matching the snaps when you don't need them on the field. Like, because to be honest, the times when you can people are like, oh, that's a lot, and yada, yada. And how, but you can help with this merely by taking them off the field. You could do it on both sides of the ball on run concepts or expected run concepts. He doesn't need to be out there blocking. That's not what God put him on this earth to do. And run defense is.
That's why we have Cedric Tillman.
Exactly. Hunter's not as bad at like run defense as like people make it seem. Actually, he he flipped an outcome of a game this year, 2024 against Baylor at the goal line in overtime on a tackle where he forced a fumble. He's not as finesse as people make it seem, but it's also not like he's great overall. So it's like you could take him off the field for those. You want Travis Hunter on the field every time the ball's in the air on both sides of the ball.
Yeah.
Yeah, you would think that the Browns would kind of be good at this because you just look at, and I know Nick Chubb still had the injuries, but they were very good at monitoring his carries, his touches over seasons, and keeping him right at an amount that everybody wanted him to have more touches all the time. But you could see by the load that he had every season that they were conscious of how many carries they wanted him to have. So I think that's something they can definitely, they would be a good team to handle that.
Yeah, and it's a front office that uses analytics, and so that's, I would expect them to get deep on that, and with the running back position, it's a bit easier because it's apples to apples, right? Like there used to be there was that study, this might have been 10 plus years ago, but there's some magic number of if a running back goes over that and it touches in a season that like their injury risk the next year was like ludicrously high. Yeah. And then his odds of regression the next year were essentially guaranteed. You were guaranteeing that the asset, you were depreciating your own asset if you crossed over a specific touch number. The Travis, again, it gets a little bit tougher because we don't have a precedent for it, but like you can find, your numbers can at least lead you as close as you can to like, okay, we feel good about this projection of snaps per game with him. And then, you got to stick to it. You can't, in games where it's close, you can't be like, all right, screw it. 100% of the snaps on both sides. Like, cause you want them obviously long-term and you're going to want them season in and season out, available later in the season. Hopefully you're in the playoffs.
Yeah. Thor, I usually ask you, something along the lines of what do you think of the draft class, things like that. Well, your 500's out, and we've talked, even with the Shohei Ohtani comp about, the time that you put in the comps and how good they are, for, with the players, how well they match up. We've talked about this over the years. Looking at the 500, I know what you think of this draft class. I can tell just by going through and seeing the comps. There's some guys at the top that you love, obviously. And then, it seems like it kind of drops off. And I can tell the positions, which I already knew the positions it was strong in. But let's get into the quarterback comps because this is fun. And some Browns fans that have been clamoring for certain quarterbacks are going to say, I knew it, or, oh my gosh, not him on some of these comps. So first of all, if the Browns, assuming they do go with Travis Hunter at 2, we're looking at 33 or a trade up into the bottom of the first round at the earliest for a quarterback. So that takes a couple guys out of play more than likely. Who do you feel is a fit for the Browns, first of all? Who would you like to see them go with? Because they obviously, you think with their quarterback situation, they're still looking to draft somebody, even if they don't do it at 2.
Yeah. My take on this is I think the Browns' second selection, their second pick of the draft, not the number 2 overall, but their second pick of the draft, I think it's going to be one of 2 names. I think it's either going to be Shadir Sanders or I think it's going to be Jalen Milroe. The Shadir Sanders thing, been hearing since the combine, monitor the Browns as Shadir Sanders starts to fall. And it's got to get to the teens before it would be
a trade up
potentially realistic. But one that makes a lot of sense is if he falls to 15, that's where the Atlanta Falcons pick. The Falcons are on the opposite end of the polarity from the Browns in draft equity this year. They only have 4 picks, and I believe half of those picks are in the 7th round. So they would love to cash in 16 to flesh out their picks. That trade works. 15 for 33, the 2 third-round picks the Browns have, and a 4th-round pick in 2026. that gets you to 15. So you would, if Shadir Sanders falls down there for that, and I think the Falcons would take that, because the Falcons, their biggest need is edge rusher. But there's 6 guys in this class that at least I feel pretty confident are first round talents, but I don't believe that all 6 of them are going in the first round. And the guy that at this point we're all getting more and more convinced is going to slip out of the first round is one of the best fits for the Falcons. And I think they could get him at 33. That's James Pierce Jr. Because what the Falcons desperately need, it's a guy who can generate heat in the pass rush. That's all James Pierce does. So the Falcons, you could turn that 15 pick into James Pierce, 2 third-round picks and a 4th next year. You do that every day of the week. Then the Browns, you get up there. If Shadir was to fall there, and then and you could have competition from other teams in the trade market as well. And you never know who could fall there as well. So it's not a guaranteed outcome. Just like I said, I've been getting told this for a couple months that if that happens, the Browns are going to try. And then the Milroe one, I have no information on this. This is me dot connecting. And I think I feel pretty clear dot connecting, but I've been locked in my bunker now for months, and I'm starting to feel like Charlie Day, and Always Sunny in Philadelphia, my cork board. But I'm surprised that more, like, I haven't heard this spoken about, this connection, like, certainly nationally. And I'm surprised why more people aren't making it. First of all, as you guys know, the Browns offensive coordinator, Tommy Rees, was the offensive coordinator for Alabama at the time period when Jalen Milroe looked like a future first overall pick. That was down the stretch in 2023. Then, so you have that, data point 1. Data point 2, Jalen Milroe was invited to the NFL draft in one of the most shocking invites that we have heard in the last decade. That one came totally out of left field. And the NFL does not make mistakes with those. They have some level of information on there, some indication or something. Who is the mystery team on Jalen Milroe? Jalen Milroe is definitely going higher than people think. The NFL is telling you that. Who is the mystery team on him? I was going through all of them. Most of them don't make sense. He wouldn't make sense in Dable's offense. It wouldn't make sense for the Steelers, because the Steelers 3 years ago, they had the choice of Kenny Pickett or Malik Willis. They chose Kenny Pickett. Same people making that decision. Now they're going to put Milroe over Dart on their board. That
doesn't sound right.
Yeah, it wouldn't jive. They would have had to change the way that they evaluate quarterbacks to do that. So then you're thinking, like, who else could it be? Even like, I heard people be like, oh, well, what if the Rams but he doesn't fit McVay's offense. Right. And so you start thinking, like, who could the mystery team be? The Browns make all the sense in the world. You start going through the other teams, it's like, no. You get to the Browns, like, okay, that one makes a lot of sense. The Tommy Rees thing. And then the other thing, last week, that press conference, Andrew Berry, most people just reporting what he said about Travis Hunter, but I thought it was fascinating, the stuff he said about Milroe. He said Milroe could be the fastest quarterback in the NFL from day one. Don't tell Lamar, Then they asked him, like, if having Tommy Rees on the staff, like, made it easier to, like, evaluate Milroe. And, like, that's one it's an easy, like, if you don't like Milroe, you're just naturally going to be like, oh yeah, it's always good, in generality, like, it's always good to have extra info on a prospect, or you could try to dance around it. I thought it was fascinating that he was like, oh yeah, it's super invaluable. Like, Tommy knows exactly how to use Jalen, and was like, oh, that's interesting. And then there was a question about the scheme, of like, oh, going back to the Lamar thing, and like, if you thought, and Barry said, he's like, well, Milroe has tools that are different from other quarterbacks in the league. So, of course, and that's it, you're going to build the offense around that player. I was like, it feels like he's telling us that they've already thought inside the building how an offense would be built around Milroe. And boy, does that make sense, because the guy who did it when he looked like a future NFL All-Pro is literally their offensive coordinator. Yeah. Right. And so it's like, and then
Right.
with the NFL sending out the invite, it's like, and knowing that the Browns, that, you know, like I feel from the information that I've gotten that second pick has been earmarked for that. That first pick, they want to take the all-time unicorn. They want to take the best player in the draft. They're making the correct decision. But that doesn't mean you're not going to get your quarterback of the future out of this. And that's what they've been actively monitoring, that situation. So I think it's either if you get the opportunity for Shadir, he has to fall into the middle of the first round. It's somewhere in the teens there to even for it to be a shot. But if that doesn't work out, I think they're going to do a short trade back into very end of round one. Something like the Panthers did with the Bills last year, the trade that made Xavier Legette the last pick of the first round and Keon Coleman the first one of the second, kick in like a 6th round pick, and then you can give the 5th-year option on the contract. That's what I would expect. If they can't get access to Shadir, I think it's Milroe time, the end of round one.
Yeah,
nice. We've got plenty of 6th-round picks. Yeah,
I was going to say I'd be happy to give up a 6th rounder, but I think Browns fans would lose our collective minds if we gave up all of our picks except for one between the 2nd round and the 6th. Be tough.
Yeah,
we just need too much. We have too many needs here, right?
Yeah, and another, that trade hypothetical one that I tossed out, it's just what jives on there. But you can also, for instance, you're suggesting maybe we could protect one of the thirds. You certainly could, but then you have to give more equity the next year, right?
Yeah.
But could certainly do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that'll be interesting. Yeah, kind of. I guess we'll see. But you're definitely leaning toward them going quarterback with the 2nd pick. Well, with their 2nd pick, wherever it happens to be.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be via trade up for either Sanders or Milroe. The bigger swing for Sanders or the smaller one for Milroe.
Yeah.
So just throwing out our organizational desperation for a quarterback. Do you think those guys are I don't want to say worth it, but is that equity well invested in this quarterback class for a guy that we really don't place a lot of hopes on?
For me, the Sanders one for sure. Sanders on my board 8, I think.
8.
Yeah, and QB1. I like him a little bit more than Cam Ward. I think Shadur is super undersold, and I think a lot of the things said about him are unfair and aren't actually accurate to his game. If you just take his game in a vacuum, give yourself the Men in Black thing with your memory so you don't know anything about, the father and all that stuff, and you just watch him on film, that's the best quarterback in this class. Just is. The body of work, the projection of his game. He doesn't have the strongest arm. Cam Ward has a stronger arm than him, but it's not a ball. It's not a who throws. It's not punt, pass, and kick, right? Yeah. Shadir, accuracy, placement by far the best. He takes care of the ball by far the best. He's a chain mover that takes care of the ball. Always taking the profit. It's going to work in the NFL. It's going to project. He's going to be a good starter for a long time. So if in that, it's not realistic for the Browns unless it doesn't even come on the table unless he gets into the 15 or lower, right? And then you can start trying. But absolutely, the juice worth the squeeze there. And I think he's not Tommy Rees. It would be interesting to know his take. I'm sure Tommy Rees would say, since he's already worked with Milroe and since they already built that awesome offense at Bama in 2023, like Milroe didn't start struggling until down the stretch this past year, and it's because Kalen DeBoer was trying to make him a pocket passer. Like you can play Milroe's game up by making the offense around him. DeBoer, you're fitting into his offense, right? You're doing the pocket passing concepts that he wants. But Tommy Rees, give him true serum, he might still lean with Milroe, but Stefanski, the way he traditionally does offense, Sanders is a way better fit for him. So, I'm kind of, and Sanders the better prospect in that the floor is, to me, extremely high on Sanders. I don't see how Sanders is not at least a long-term NFL starter. if not, a good one. But like, I don't see how he's not one of the 25 best quarterbacks for the next 25 years, or I'm sorry, the next 10 years. The embedded skill set that he has, it just translates.
Yeah. So what if there's a run on quarterbacks, Thor? So, and I know it's probably not likely, but what if the Saints take Shedeur, and Steelers maybe move up and for some odd reason take Jalen Milroe, to where the Browns go a different direction at 33? What do you think would be most likely for them to try to do then? And then they end up going after one of these other guys a little further down at quarterback.
Yeah. So you're saying if the 4 quarterbacks are out the board before 33 and they didn't get access?
Yeah. Pretty much if Shedeur and Milroe were gone before mid to late 20s, and there's no point in them trading up, to where they're sitting there at 33 or I guess what position or what guy might be there, or what do you think would be their next need or next guy that you think would fulfill the biggest need for him? At
that point, obviously, you can't do quarterback probably that day. People that would say Tyler Shuck, not that. Like, to me, Tyler Shuck is super overblown to me. Day 3 prospect for me. It seems like he's going to go on day 2. If I was the Browns, I wouldn't Brandon Weeden that one, force that one, on the late, the old guy thing. What I would do if I'm them is probably take a running back at 33, because you can get probably RB3 there. And that by the time you come up in the 3rd round, at minimum, the top 5 consensus RBs will be off the board. But maybe, there's probably like a slightly better than 50% chance that RB6 would be off the board too, and maybe RB7. But the whole point being, the consensus top 5 guys, if you want one of them, you have to pull the trigger at 33. If only 2 receivers go in the 1st round, that might be interesting as well. If Egbuka is sitting there and Burden's sitting there, and then, let's say with the running backs, Genty and Hampton are off the board, you could certainly think through that, because running back is obviously way deeper than receiver this year. So I could see making the argument in their case, especially, keep Egbuka home. Like, I could definitely see that at 33, but I would probably be between those 2 positions.
Wow. That would be interesting, taking Travis Hunter and Egbuka.
Yeah.
Both of those guys. Yeah.
Whoever
I think a lot of people would
have some weapons.
Definitely. Yeah. I think a lot of people would like to see Travion Henderson. That's a name a lot of people bring up. I know you have him. I think a lot of people look at Judkins, Henderson, Johnson, and they all have their favorite probably among those 3 guys.
For sure.
Or Hampton, if he makes it that far, especially. Too.
Yeah. For me, my top 5, Genty and Hampton, of course, and then Caleb Johnson 3, and then Travion 4, and then Judkins 5. But like it's like consensus top 5. But for me, there's a little break between Henderson and Judkins. I like RJ Harvey, the UCF back, closer to Judkins than Judkins is to Travion or whatever. But that's kind of how I see it. Caleb Johnson, he's got to get to his own system, where it's the pure zone system and a lot of outside stretch zone thing. But if he does, he can be very good.
Yeah. So I scrolled away from quarterbacks, but some of the comps there, and I know I moved on to running backs. So I just wanted to go over a couple of these real quick, because the Browns fans are going to love it. So Jalen Milroe, you got him comped to Tyrod Taylor, which is going to scare the crap out of every Browns fan.
Well, so it's tough with Milroe, because like with every prospect, I just put the 1 comp, but really in my head I got 3 comps for most guys, because it's your bonanza outcome comp. Like, if everything breaks right, what does this guy look like in the NFL? And then it's like your mid-road sort of one, and then you you know, you have your sort of nightmare one, you know, your low end outcome. And Tyrod Taylor is probably closer to I would say Tyrod Taylor to Justin Fields. Somewhere in there is the mid-tier outcome for Milroe.
Mhm.
The low tier outcome is probably Malik Willis. And then the bonanza outcome is right-handed Michael Vick. Right? I mean, you have that's a guy where it's, you know, total swing for the fences, right? It's the you know, high how do you say? High ceiling, low floor. What, you know, how low floor, high ceiling. Yeah. The lack of sleep the last 2 months is catching up to us. But you guys know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Boomer bust.
Boomer bust, exactly. Yeah, he's a shoot the moon guy for sure.
Right.
Then some of these other guys, some Browns fans, I'm just saying, Quinn Ewer to Kenny Pickett, Will Howard to Mason Rudolph, and everybody's just going to start scratching guys off their list. Just having fun. I know Will Howard's got some fans in Ohio. You have I think you have Kyle McCord probably higher than some other people do, but I know a lot of people like him too. Not going to ask you to really justify that, because I know a lot of those guys.
I'd love to
justify. Right?
I would love to justify it, actually.
Go ahead.
Because I was going to say, you know, beyond like taking the running back probably at 33 if I'm the Browns, you know, probably Travion is probably who I'd take, you know, for the Browns, because they didn't get to keep him on too. It's fun. But what I was going to say was, if that was the case, then I would, because with the top 4 QBs being gone, I ain't taking one day 2, but I'm targeting Kyle McCord. We're bringing Kyle home on day 3. If I'm like, that's what would be my backup option as the Browns. Like, then, you know, you see what you can do, you know, if you can get Kirk Cousins, or you do, you know, whatever, something else as far as your starter. But like, I would like to get Kyle McCord at that point. If I was Cleveland, Kyle McCord, I'll just be honest, I did not like him when he was at Ohio State. You know, in terms of the talent that he had, I definitely thought he underachieved. And so I wasn't like super surprised when like Ohio State kicked him out the door. Because I was a little frustrated watching McCord that year too. But it's weird. You know, usually we think of players, it's like, oh, when their surrounding cast is better, then they're going to be better and whatnot. It was the opposite for Kyle McCord. It was like he was sort of unshackled at Syracuse. And even though he wasn't playing with as good of teammates, he was sort of free to become his own guy. And you saw him get more aggressive. You saw him empowered when he saw a coverage look to attack it how he wanted, as opposed to, you know, this is your first read, this is your second one. Like, it seemed like, you know, he didn't want to the thing of like following the script and kind of be a Manchurian candidate like that. It wasn't maybe the best fit for him. And like when he could see it and attack it right away, it seemed like his game played up. So I see some pocket passing things there that I really like with Kyle McCord. He's not a great athlete, as you guys know, and the arm is average. You know, I mean, it's not a wet noodle, but it's not. It's certainly not a howitzer, but he has enough juice in the arm to get the ball downfield, and he knows his limitations too. Mostly, you know, last year he was essentially perfect outside of one game where the mistakes just kept compounding on him against Pittsburgh. But outside of that debacle, in the other 12 games, he was one of the nation's better quarterbacks. In fact, even with the Pittsburgh game included, he finished number 3 PFF wins above replacement last year. So, I mean, he's a good player. I think there's the two guys that with him where I see some similarities with skill sets from the NFL, Chad Henne and Kirk Cousins. Like Kirk Cousins would be his bonanza outcome, but like you have similarities in the games there. So that's sort of my sleeper of the quarterback class, I guess.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna take a quick break. We'll be back in just a moment with more of the Browns Blitz and Thor Nystrom. And we're back with the Browns Blitz and Thor Nystrom. Jeff, we've been kind of keeping you quiet there. I know you have some questions.
That's fine.
Thor. Is there something you want to dive in on?
Thor, I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on the tackle class this year. We currently don't have a left tackle on our roster. We have some guys that might play left tackle. How do you see the top part of this tackle class, and then how do you see the lower part of the tackle class in terms of developmental ability to eventually become a starter at left tackle? Do you see any sleepers down there at the bottom part of the draft? Because Rod and I are starting to come to the conclusion that if there's one spot we're going to miss out on in this draft, it's probably going to be our left tackle.
Yeah, honestly, I think this tackle class kind of trash because you don't like, is there even one guy that you can hang your hat on and be like, that dude 100% is starting 8 years at left tackle in the NFL,
Yeah.
or even 6 years, or even friggin' 5. Like, if there's a gun to your head and it's like, pick the one that's doing it, it's like, oh boy, you know what I mean? Like, we don't have any of those sure things. Like, Membo from Missouri, I like his game, but he's a right tackle, right? I mean, that's what he did for 3 years at Missouri. He's never played left tackle. Kelvin Banks, I think, has the best shot too. I'm a little bit higher on Kelvin Banks than other people, but it's possible Kelvin Banks, that he'll just be a right tackle or even a guard. But I think he's got the best shot at the left tackle. Will Campbell's not even a tackle. I thought it'd be too disrespectful to Will Campbell that in advance to just put him, like, list him at guard in my rankings. So it was like, I felt like out of, because, especially like offensive line and then some defensive position, like, it's like, what position should I list this guy at? Right. Will Campbell, I actually wanted to list him at guard because I don't believe he can play tackle in the NFL. Either one of them. We don't have any precedent for someone whose arms are as short as his hanging at tackle in the NFL and succeeding to any degree. Yeah. So, like, the way that I did that in my thing, I gave him a comp of Steve Hutchinson. I think he's going to be a good guard or center. It's a possibility, but he ain't going to be playing tackle. For the Browns, the one possibility there, I think, is what did the NFL team, what did they get on Josh Simmons with the injury, right? Like, what are the different, like, could it lead to is there enough trepidation there where he falls out of the first round? Like, I don't think so, but there is a shot, right? I mean, he's not a lock, right? So that, of course the Browns would have to be comfortable enough to, to pop him at 33, but like, Josh Simmons, he could play left tackle in the NFL, right? Like, if everything's good with that, he has the tool set. And then the other one to consider there at 33 would be Josh Connerly Jr. And I think probably he will be there. And he's the really good athlete. It's a finesse player. He doesn't have play strength, but the movement and the athleticism there is high end. He was in high school. He started out as a running back, and then it switched over. But
that's the guy I've been talking up.
Is Connerly?
Yes. Yeah,
I could see Connerly at 33. If it's not going to be that scenario, talked about getting boxed out of the top 4 QBs, and maybe you can with this class, and knowing that the tackle class is down and knowing that you're sitting in potentially historic running back class, that's how you could, the running back thing's a need for sure. And I understand how attractive it'd be to take, especially one of the Ohio State kids at the top of round 2. But that could be your, whether it's Connerly, whether, or Simmons falling there unexpectedly, that would probably be one where I would, think really hard about deferring to tackle because, and with all the draft equity that the Browns have, this scenario, they haven't made a trade. So you got the 2/3, you have all the day 3 equity. That gives you the flexibility to trade up, right? So it's not necessarily you get boxed out. Like, you could try to get down, or you could try to move up middle of the second round, and you could probably still pick off Judkins there. I think he's going to go somewhere around that. You would have to actively monitor the situation. Obviously, right at the top of 2, if 2 of those running backs go bang, bang, then you're probably going to be out, of it or whatever. Yeah. But you'd have a shot getting there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting. Yeah, we kind of been feeling like assuming they just pick at 2 and then wait to 33 to pick, that they're probably going to have a choice between, 2 to 3 players there, and what do they do? And could be a tough choice, between a tackle and a running back, or maybe a wide receiver, or potentially a safety that they need, depending on just who falls. But the running back class is so strong, and I mean, you've got a lot of these guys comped to great running backs. So I really hadn't thought a lot about trading up from 67 to grab a guy like that. That really makes a lot of sense, using some of those picks to move up from 67, maybe to get one.
Yeah, I got in my sheets, I got a little gizmo where it's like it shows me with the trades, because I got a trade chart, and I can put it in and see. Let's see, to get up to, let's see, maybe 44, like somewhere around there. Just to give an idea. Let's see if it was 67 and 94. Okay, 67 and 94. It still falls short of let's see what that would get. That gets around like 52. So you could move up 15 spots by sacrificing the second round 3. 51 maybe 50, but somewhere in that range, that both the third rounders could be potentially cash into that if the team in that slot was down with that. That more or less jives on the chart. Yeah. So just something to keep in mind there.
Yeah, I have said, Thor, that I expect Andrew Berry to be active. I think he'll move where he needs to move and so forth. Just for fun, before we let you go, Thor, I want to do a little kind of game here. The Browns have obviously 10 picks, 5 high and 5 low. We've got a big gap between top of the 4th round and the 6th round where we're picking. So just for fun, I'm going to give you some names and tell me whether you think they're going to go 3rd round or earlier, or 4th round or later.
Okay.
You already answered one of them, so I'm just going to skip Tyler Shuck. but I'm going to give you one of Rod's favorite players, running back out of Virginia Tech, Bashal Tutin.
I think he'll go early round 4.
Okay.
Like the first half of round 4.
Helped himself at the combine with that 4.3, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. Let me give you another 4.3 guy, wide receiver out of Tennessee, Dante Thornton. One-trick pony, you described him as, or he gets described as.
Yeah, he is, but it's a neat trick. The NFL,
it's a hell of a trick, right?
Yeah, because it and people just, for people out there, Dante Thornton, he was the first guy in like 15 years or something, or 20 years at the combine, as big as he was, to run as fast as he did.
Right.
The straight line speed on him is ridiculous, and so I comp him to Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but guys like that, the one-trick pony deep guys, but he's going to provide that utility in the NFL, and all you got to show is that you're able to hit a dinger to scare the defense sufficiently where they got to play 2 high safeties, and it helps the space. It gives you intermediate spacing, so it helps all your teammates. I think Thornton in this, it's different than with Tutin, right? Because Tutin, if this same Tutin was in last year's class, 3rd round pick for sure. It would have been interesting. Like, could he have bypassed Trey Benson in that class? It could have been interesting, high 3rd round or even late 2nd, but you get pushed down with that. The wide receiver class, the opposite. This wide receiver class stinks. Thornton, I'm going to say, because it stinks, I'm going to say round 4 on Thornton. I'm going to be kind of bullish. I think round 4.
Okay. Let me give you another one that's kind of in that same area. D tackle out of Florida State, Joshua Farmer. Been watching him for a couple of years now.
Farmer, I'm going to say the interior defensive line, because there's that's another one of the stacked ones. It's like how aggressive we get early on it. With Farmer, I'm gonna say round 2, but there is this shot for a top half of round 3, just depending on the way it shakes out. But I'll say I'm gonna say round 2. I'll say latter half of round 2.
2. Okay, you're high on him.
Mm.
Okay, cool. Just one other guy I'd like to ask you about, Thor. I don't know how much background you have on it, but another guy that I thought might come out last year, Jack Nelson out of Wisconsin, the tackle / guard / you name it. Chance that he slides down into the end of the draft as a developmental value sort of utility guy.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely going to go. Let's see. I got him 172 on my board. So he is going to be like a, day 3 developmental guy, whatever. He has the physical ability. He had the pedigree. He's got some experience too. Hasn't put it all together yet. And it's like, is that ever coming? I don't think probably at tackle. Maybe he's got to move inside, but it's tough with because he's 6'7". So it's like a leverage thing as well.
Right.
He might be quadruple A, but just because of the physical ability and that sort of stuff, he's worth in this bad tackle class, like taking as a developmental guy, because at least you have the tool set. But like at Wisconsin, they kept expecting like, okay, this year he's going to turn into like consensus top 50 overall guy, and it just sort of never happened. And so it's like, what's going on there, right? And that's what I would try to figure out, in advance of making that decision. But yeah, like I said, 172 is where I got him. I guess that'd be 5th round, or like early 5th round pick on my board, something like that.
Yeah, it's hard with all the comp picks in there to figure it anymore. yeah, something like the 5th. Yeah.
That and that's where I'd be comfortable taking him, like top half of the 5th. If I need the tackle and then I've missed out early, and then the developmental guy.
I'd be real surprised if we end up using 4 6ths and a 7th. So hopefully we can move up somewhere into that range and find a couple of these guys.
Yeah, those are going to be trade ammo for sure. You're not using all them picks, but it's monitor the board, and there's Barry's he's gonna have a couple opportunities to make the swing up, and he knows he's got that ammo, so it's like, are we going to use that for the swing up into round 1, that or is it going to be later on? But I think day 1 or day 2 you're going to get an interesting trade from the Browns. One of those first 2 days, like a big one.
Right, I agree. Awesome, thanks, Thor.
Yeah. So, if I can squeeze this in, so if the Browns end up going Travis Hunter, and say they get Milroe at 33, you got those next 3 picks, 67. Say they end up with a running back in that area. Where do you think they go with those other 2 high picks? I'm kind of talking like your ideal draft here without phrasing it that way, I guess.
Maybe left tackle, linebacker, receiver, 2 of those 3 positions probably. Because that was the question, right? What was their next 2?
Kind of what's your ideal draft for the Browns? I mean, I guess you would probably have them trade up for Sanders if possible, but if not, you're taking Milroe.
For sure.
Right. So then you're probably going running back next after that, right?
Yeah.
And then you got 2 more picks in the top and the first 4 rounds.
Left tackle, receiver, line. In that scenario, that's depending on who falls there, to those next ones. But that's probably those would be the positions that would be at the top of my list, I think, for the Browns.
Awesome. Where are you going to be for the draft, Thor?
In my home office.
All right.
We're doing the live shows round 1 for Fantasy Life on the YouTube channel, and then day 2 as well. We'll be on live. So excited to do those.
Awesome. Cool. So everybody can find your stuff at ThorKU. And do you have any closing words for the Browns fans for this draft?
No, I just have some fun later this week. You guys got a lot of ammo. You're 1 week from right now, Cleveland Browns are going to be a lot better than they are right now.
Yeah. Oh boy, I hope you're right.
I sure hope so. Well, we appreciate you coming out with us, Thor.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Right.
Take it easy.
Sure thing. Take care.
No tight end.
No tight end. Any thoughts? Anything you want to add on what we talked about with Thor?
Yeah, no, I agree with the priorities. It's hard at this point. I mean, like we said earlier, Browns fans pretty much all have our ideal draft laid out now, and will be disappointed in some way by like not getting one of our favorites. But man, if we go through another draft without drafting a tight end, I might lose my mind.
Well, yeah, I think you might. Yeah. I think it comes down to how early they try to address running back, and tackle, things like that. If not, then there's the potential that they look tight end with one of those, 67, 94, 104 picks.
Yeah.
And if they take it there, then you're probably getting a pretty darn good tight end, right?
Well, yeah. If we're taking with a tight end with one of those top 5 picks, I think it's going to be a guy that will stick around. Will be a number 2 that could become a number 1 down the road.
Right.
If we wait until later in the draft, then we're
6th round.
Player. We're getting a role
6th
player.
round.
Even if we move back up into the later fourth or 5th, we're still probably getting a role player. Which you wonder if he's going to be that much better than a UDFA or a free agent,
right.
At that point.
So I was looking at. Go ahead. Sorry, Jeff.
If you're really looking for a guy that's going to become a big part of your offense, I think you have to take him with one of those top 5 picks.
Yeah, I think so. There seem to be quite a few guys, and you've talked about tight end quite a bit on this podcast, but some of the comps Thor has on some of the tight ends are, pretty impressive. Tells you he thinks especially the top part of the draft class is pretty strong. So
right. Yeah.
He's got Colston Loveland comp to Mark Andrews, which,
right.
Has killed us enough to, as Browns fans. Mason Taylor to Hunter Henry,
Terrence Ferguson is his number 3 tight end, and
number 4 actually behind Mason Taylor.
Oh, is he?
So he's got Tyler Warren, Colston Loveland, Mason Taylor, Terrence Ferguson, then Eric Fannin, then Elijah Arroyo.
I would think that we would want to come out of this draft with one of those top 5 tight ends.
Yeah, well, you would think that it's potential that Ferguson or Fannin, Arroyo, I don't know what you think of Arroyo, but those guys could be there at 67.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you'd like to be able to use some of these picks twice, but you just got to be happy to go in and just get some talent.
We have more needs than we have picks,
right?
At least high picks. So, like we've been saying, we're going to come out of this probably missing out on a couple of them that we really wanted to see filled by the draft. But you just have to kind of look at who the best players are on the board when you're picking, right?
Right.
If we get to 33 and it's a choice between Josh Connerly and Nick Emenwari, okay, well, do you want your left tackle or do you want your starting safety? That's going to be a tough choice, If we haven't taken a quarterback at the top, do we take a quarterback there and get neither one of those?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So
I don't know. If I'm predicting, if they're taking either Travis Hunter or Shedeur Sanders in the first round, then they're probably taking either Connerly or Emenwari in the second round, right? And so you're getting 2 of those 4 positions that you're probably not going to get later in the draft, at least not at that level. That level of talent and play.
Yeah.
So you're kind of picking with the first 2 picks. You're deciding which position you want to fill, which position you're probably not going to fill.
Right. So, Jeff, you've heard from several experts on this podcast over the last few weeks. Let's let's hear your. How do you want to do this? Because I want to get them just a quick mock from you. You can go as many picks as you want, but
Yeah.
either how you think it might play out or how you would like it to play out, and you name it. But whether you want to do the first 5 picks or whatever.
Yeah. So I mean, how I think it'll play out, and I'll expand on what I just said. Travis Hunter or Shador at number 2, assuming they keep the pick and don't trade down. If they trade down, then I would expect them to take either Shador or a tackle. Then at 33, the 2 guys I mentioned, or a second-tier quarterback, maybe a wide receiver. There's a lot of ways it could go at 33, depending on what they do at 2. And then 67, either one of the top tight ends or free safety. 94, I would say by that point we've got to take a tight end, or maybe they just decide to pass on tight end again and go with either a running back or a receiver there. And then if we haven't taken a running back by then in round 4 at 104, that's where we have to take a receiver, right? So I guess if I'm going to put the highlighter through these guys, I'm going to say with the second pick, they probably take Travis Hunter.
Feels like it.
With pick number 33, I think those quarterbacks are going to be gone. So I just don't think moving up to try to get one.
Do you think Milroe's going to be gone by 33?
I think so, probably. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. So I think for me, if he's still there, the best athlete that's going to be left is Nick Emenwari. Okay. So I'm going to pick him as my round 2 pick. So that gets me a number 1 cornerback and a starting free safety on defense, plus whatever Travis Hunter brings on offense. Now with my next 2 picks, I'm going to go offense. I'm going to take, let's see. I'm going to take whoever the top receiver is left on the board. Or
67.
No, I think I'm going to go tight end at 67. I'm going to say Mason Taylor is still going to be there. I'm going to take Mason Taylor as my future number 1 tight end.
Okay, could be. Yeah.
And then I'm going to go receiver after that. So I'm going to say Jaden Higgins. He's probably going to still be there at 94.
Okay.
And then at 104, I'm going to go with Devin Neal.
Okay.
That's as far as I think I'm comfortable going. Beyond that, it's really a crapshoot.
They're not making 4 6th-round picks. Let's do an over/under on how many picks they make. You throw a number out there. Let's see.
Over/under.
Over/under.
So the over/under would be 8.
8.
Yeah, I think it would be 8.
Hey, I'm going to go under on 8, honestly.
Okay.
Because I feel like they're going to use some picks to move, and I feel like there's not a bad chance that they trade 1 or 2 of those 6 if they don't use them all to move.
Yeah.
That they trade some of those out into 26.
Okay.
So
yeah.
I almost expect them to use, unless they do something where they're trading up in the first to try to get Sanders, almost expect them to use those top 5 picks or close to it, unless they move around a little bit. And then maybe keep the 6th and maybe the 7th, 1 6th and 1 7th. That's kind of what I would expect. Something like that.
Pretty likely. Since you took under, I'll take over. I don't know if there's any chance that they take 9 or 10 guys, but just based on how many needs that we have, I guess it's possible. I don't think we're going to take all those 6th-round picks, but at least one of them will hopefully move back up into the 5th round, so we can get a guy in that range. You notice in my first 5 picks, I didn't take a quarterback. Because I think a quarterback, we could take literally anywhere in this draft. We could take a quarterback from the 1st round to the 5th fifth or sixth round, we could take a quarterback that could be number 3 on our depth chart this year,
Right.
and take a swing at him, and maybe he answers our backup problem long term, or maybe we end up with nothing and we're drafting a quarterback again next year, which we would be anyway, right? But
Yeah.
I just don't see the issue I don't see the point in forcing a quarterback this year, and that's what Jimmy said. We're not going to.
Well, it all depends how much they like a guy and what the price is, and you have to be able to weigh all that stuff out.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can move up a couple picks and take the guy you want and not overpay for him, then go ahead and do it. But don't give up your whole draft and a first rounder next year to move up a few spots to get a guy that you're not sure about.
Right.
That's what it comes down to. A lot of common sense is what it comes down to.
I mean, it's like I said last week. If there's a guy that they're in love with, and Kevin Stefanski gets to pick his quarterback, and they're going to go all in on a guy, then great. If they see that guy in this draft, if they don't, I don't want them to try to make that happen and whiff. Just doesn't make sense to me.
Well, it's interesting because obviously Milroe and Sanders are two very different guys, very different style of play. So,
right.
So yeah,
exactly.
It'd be interesting to see, what, I mean, you would certainly think that Kevin's got a lot of input on that. So,
yeah.
We'll see. But there again, like you said, if these guys go higher than the Browns would be willing to trade up and get, then it's going to be a moot point, and I think they'll then better play. It's going to give them better choice at 33, and maybe they do even get into a spot where they trade down a few picks from 33 because they got 5 guys there that they like, and accumulate more assets that way. You never know.
Yeah.
You never know.
There's a lot of guys that can play in this draft. I mean, there's going to be some real talent available to us everywhere we pick. We heard Emery say that he had 1,500 guys in his report. Thor had 500 in his. We're drafting 257 guys this year. So 257 guys. We have 5 of the top 104 in the country. Out of all those guys, five of the top 104 right now, we get to pick. This draft should set the Browns up long term, right, for talent wise at a lot of positions.
Yeah, it should certainly help them out, to get to improve the team and like you said, to add a lot of quality.
Yeah.
You just, I'm sure that they've run through all kinds of scenarios, but you just have to hope that that they go into this and just play the draft, play the game.
Yeah.
Don't force stuff. Just take what's there. If a guy starts to fall and you can go get him and he's one of your guys, then go get him for a reasonable price and do it.
Yeah.
I think Andrew Berry can do that. So let's get some guys.
Get what?
I said let's get some guys. Let's get some players.
Yeah. Let's get some guys that want to play. That want to play hard. That want to win. Just inject some youth and enthusiasm into this roster. And like I said, hopefully these first 5 picks set us up for the long term at a number of positions. And then those last 5 picks, wherever we end up taking them, get us some other guys that can fill out the back half of the roster that, maybe have some promise, so it's going to be interesting how they deploy all this capital. Should be fun to watch. Like I said, I know I'm going to be really saddened that they don't get certain guys after talking.
There's some guys who we've talked about almost every week
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I will be happy if they get, at least if they get some of the guys that we've talked about at the positions that we feel are the most important.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
And for me, yeah, you'd love to come out of this draft with a starting quarterback and a starting left tackle.
Right.
Realistically, we may come out of this draft with neither.
It's possible.
If we get one, okay, I'm good with that, you know. But if we fill out a lot of other great positions, then super. The thing that concerns me about the quarterback is you're dumping a quarterback into a team that has a really awful offense. You know, we were one of the worst offenses in the league last year. Our line's getting old. We don't have a left tackle. We need a running back. We need a receiver. We need a lot of things, right? And we're going to take a quarterback and invest all of our assets in putting a quarterback out there that's not going to have a chance. Why not build this offense back up again, put some pieces in place, and then go find your quarterback?
I really wouldn't have a problem with that. You know, if they can add, I mean, if they can take, you know, Hunter and then add guys like, you know, in whatever order you want to say, you know, if they can add guys like Mason Taylor and Travion Henderson, you know, pick your wide receiver plus the left tackle, you know, whatever order it goes in, wherever they're adding guys to fortify this offense to make it better. It definitely would make things a lot easier.
I think this has to be a 2-year project, Rod. It has to be this draft and next year's draft plus next year's free agency.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, once we are out from underneath the mess of salary cap hell and guys who can't play for us but are still getting paid, you want to have all those pieces in place so that in 28 and 29, when you're in the dome, you've built that, you know, foundation again. The offense that can work for a young quarterback. And then that opens your window up again. You know, your championship window opens up again, right?
Definitely.
I'm just concerned about putting a rookie quarterback into our offense this year. For me, that's how we got into this mess, was being desperate at quarterback. You know, that's what.
Well, it's true because we had tried everything else. Yeah.
Right, but that you know, you're seeing what desperation got you. You know, it got you in a real mess.
Yep.
So let's not be desperate at quarterback again. Let's you know, build this team back the right way with really high quality players. And when that quarterback presents himself, let's go find him. You know, let's go get him.
Yeah. All right. Well, thanks to Thor Nystrom for coming on. Follow him and check out the Thor 500 at ThorKU on X. It's really cool. We appreciate Thor coming on. Again, we are part of the Fanatical Elves Network. Make sure to follow us and subscribe and find this show on YouTube and iTunes. We appreciate your support over all the years and the recent new shows on video where you have to look at us and everything. So it's been a lot of fun, though. We appreciate all you guys checking us out.
Really enjoy this time of year, and it's going to be fun talking about all the guys that we end up with on the next show.
Definitely. All right. This has been the Browns Blitz. We thank you for listening, and we will catch you